Welcome to our episode 4 of Response to COVID, hosted by CariClub. I'm Jody. Very nice to meet all of you. And again, this is a weekly webinar that we have where we feature nonprofits from our community and spotlight what they're doing on their end to fight COVID-19. And today, from our nonprofit community, we have the awesome KIPP NYC and New Heights Youth joining us. And before we get started, just a quick background on CariClub again, for those of you that are new joining us. CariClub was founded with the idea where we wanted to match young professionals, talented emerging leaders like yourselves, to nonprofit associate boards. On one end, for the young professionals, it's a great leadership development. And on the other end, for nonprofits, it's really a way to create more diversity on their associate boards. And again, being able to help build talent and create a deep relationship for the young member for the young professional to the nonprofit associate board, and hopefully, from there it could go on to a governing board, it could go on to a deeper relationship with the nonprofit. And for us, at the end of the day, it's all about making an impact. And that being said, with COVID-19 kind of pulling the rug from under us, we wanted to try to help get ahead of that and try to create a way, at the end of the day, online community, for lack of better words to explain it, in order to help members, our CariClub members, and our nonprofit community get together and say, okay, how can I help? Even though I'm at home, I'm shelter in place, luckily, but there must be something else that we can do together. Whether it's volunteering virtually, or it is a donation, or it's, maybe the nonprofit needs some help with calls or creating a spreadsheet, anything like that. And we wanted to bring light to it. And of course, you all know, unfortunately, New York State / New York City is the epicenter of what's going on with COVID-19, and it is our home base as well. And that being said, we wanted to really feature our nonprofit community within New York City. And again, we have KIPP NYC and New Heights Youth joining us today. And before we get started and having them come introduce themselves, one of the things is there is a Q&A at the bottom of the screen in your dashboard. So feel free to ask questions and type it in there, because we want it to be as roundtable and conversational as possible. For us, we understand everyone is so busy given the work from home schedule. So we want to keep it concise and make sure that we address all the questions. And if you have any pressing questions, please raise your hand. There's a little icon where you can raise your hand, so we're aware of that and we can address it that way as well. And while we're having all the conversations. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce our nonprofit. So from KIPP NYC, we have Neka and Kim. And then from New Heights, we have Brian and Ashley joining us. So thank you again, guys, for taking the time out of your day. And again, to get started, our focus is on COVID-19. Things are changing by the minute, and we really want to address how we can help. And that being said, KIPP, you guys, well, actually both of you guys, you are dealing with a community where I think, or at least me personally, when I'm looking on the news and I'm looking online, I don't see a lot of stats, I don't see a lot of stories about how this is impacting the youth. And because, they're stuck at home, there's no school, everyone's kind of in limbo right now. But I think for children, it may be a lot harder to process and, get to terms with, okay, why can't I go out right now? What is it that I have to do? How can I help? So for you guys, KIPP NYC, can you kind of share with us how you're getting ahead of COVID-19 and how actually your organization with the public schools closing, how that's been affecting you guys?
Absolutely. I'm happy to take this one. So to just address your question, I'll outline what we've done in the last month, what learning now looks like for us in this new remote environment, and then some of the challenges that we've been facing. So when we got the news that schools would close on March 13th, we really rapidly scaled up our tech and remote capabilities to be able to ensure that we could transition to 15 virtual schools, essentially. And so we're serving 6,000 students all around New York City who are learning remotely, who are actively engaged in classes, and who are continuing to interact with teachers through this time. In order to do that and help facilitate that process, we had to distribute over 3,000 Chromebooks and then work on connecting them with technology to ensure that families are keyed in and plugged in and able to help support their children in this new world we're facing. And we've recently, some positive news is that we've conducted our first enrollment or lottery virtually, which is a new thing. And so we're in the process.
Wow, that's incredible.
800 new families. Yeah, we're so excited to be able to welcome them for the 2020 and 2021 school year. And one issue that's come up and was really an important part of our decision in closing schools was making sure that we were able to provide food security for families and students. And so we've been distributing meals through a community pantry that we established in the Bronx at the high school there, as well as providing grab-and-go meals, working in partnership with some grocery stores and local chain restaurants as well, who've stepped up and offered to help donate meals to families in need. And I think the last point that I think is really important as well is that we're thinking about how this impacts college alumni, who, for them as well, it's a challenging time where they're preparing perhaps for an internship or thinking about how this would impact their college experience. And so for many of them where there is a need, we've offered grants and for 16 so far, and it's an open application for our college alumni. And then in terms of what the remote learning environment looks like, KIPP NYC is actively using a number of apps and platforms. So we're using Google Classroom, Zoom Pro, and then things like Zern and Khan Academy to keep students really engaged and working on independent tasks, but also having those regular check-ins with their teachers. We've just completely reimagined their daily schedule to be able to accommodate the academic side, but we're also thinking a lot about the mental health side of it and the additional resources that are needed so that they can continue to do things like meditation or visual art projects. And so we're really taking a holistic approach to thinking about students at this time. And then lastly, we're continually engaging with our community of families and surveying them to find out what needs are bubbling up and where we can most support. Some of those needs are around financial assistance for things, everything from utility bills, technology needs, and some of it is resources that we can cover in-house or refer them to a legal aid organization or other support systems available here in New York. And I'll just touch base really briefly on some of the challenges that we're facing, because while we've had this incredible success story in launching this remote learning platform for 15 schools, there are a couple of areas where we're really focusing our attention on addressing in this new chapter, if you will. We've had some issues around access to technology. So about 15% of students still need printed materials and packets. And so we're trying to find ways to creatively get that material, print and submit those kinds of materials to the students so they can continue their learning. And technology, as you can all imagine, is not available equally across the board for all students. So there have been issues like internet access for some families, and we're working directly through principals as well to help address that. And then lastly, we're thinking a lot about the language, make sure that our materials are broadly available. So having them translated into Spanish and other languages is important to us so that we can really support the families holistically and meet them where they're at.
Gotcha. And thank you for sharing that. And that's really wonderful. You know, you guys are really embracing the things are changing by the minute. What do we do? Like many nonprofits are. And one of the things that you guys have is a strong associate board. And Kim, you're kind of the head of that and the liaison between the staff, the organization itself, and the associate board. Can you share some things on what they are doing right now to kind of help get ahead of the situation, and also how they're helping with, the challenges that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, for sure. So you guys in so our junior board and our associate council has really taken a really deep involvement in our current work. Like Vanessa mentioned, we have started our Family Assistance Fund, which funds all of from the Chromebooks that our students are receiving to all of the family, like food security and everything that a family might need in order to kind of make it through these tough times. And one of the biggest ways that our junior board has come in as a resource is through fundraising. So they've been putting out our family assistance funds to their networks, trying to get sponsorship from their companies, and really trying to make sure that the word is out about all of the work that we're doing, just so that we kind of have more spokespeople on our team to kind of just show all the work that's really happening and all the challenges that we're facing in order to get more resources from connections that we directly might not have, but they might. That includes not only monetary, but also in-kind donations for things like our food pantries and our grab-and-go meals. And besides just fundraising, we're also trying to work them in to see how they can volunteer with our staff and our students, from creating career panels where we can kind of use their skills and their experiences to talk to our alumni and our high schoolers, our juniors and seniors. We're working towards creating a virtual way to make kind of the same volunteer opportunities that we would have had throughout the school year. We would have had career conversations and job fairs and all of those sorts. We're trying to make sure that our students still have the opportunity to do so even through this virtual experience, and our junior board has really stepped in and has been extremely open to having these opportunities and just being additional resources in ways that some of our teachers might not be able to when they're really solely focused on educating and doing all of the classroom work. We're trying to get our junior board to be more involved in that way and offering more opportunities for them to directly help classrooms.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And all of this information, and obviously things will change as the day goes, the day passes. Is this all information that people can find on your website, or where would people be able to find more in-depth information?
Yeah, so all of the information as to what we're doing and how we're supporting our students and our families is on the KIPP NYC website. The volunteerism is definitely something that we are revving up to go public and try to find more opportunities for, not just for our junior board, but for all of our donors and volunteers. It's definitely something that's taking a little while longer. We are keeping in mind all the safety and all of the procedures that we must follow in order to have students and volunteers that are not KIPP facing kind of have that in the public. So it's definitely something that should be coming out and going public on our website as well in the next coming weeks.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for that. And like you're saying, a lot of these challenges that you're facing, Ashley, Brian, I think you guys are also seeing that at New Heights Youth. And you guys have this amazing program where it's sports related, and that's really one of the things for kids. It's very fun when they're able to go outside and let off steam, and it's a huge part of their development. Can you guys share some things that your organization has done, and the challenges you guys are seeing as well with COVID-19?
Sure. I'll start off. Hi, my name is Ashley Faison, and I'm the Chief Development Officer at New Heights. Thank you for putting this together, Jody and Renee, and joining you guys, KIPP NYC. First, let me just give you some context to New Heights. New Heights combines, as you said, basketball and academics into one program for at-risk youth throughout New York City. We began in 2005. Since then, every single one of our seniors have graduated on time. 98% have continued on to college, and over 75% have graduated. And that's because in addition to basketball, we provide tutoring, test prep, SEL workshops, summer camp, and intensive college advisement. And most importantly, I think mentoring. We've found that opportunity is a game changer, but opportunities aren't distributed equally, especially in New York City. And we reduce the opportunity gap and create pathways to high school, college, and careers. And youth here in New York City, they play basketball more than any other sport. So we were one of the first organizations to leverage basketball's popularity to promote school performance. And we now serve over 300 student athletes annually, grades 4th through 12th, through our signature College Bound program. So I can go into kind of how we responded to this. Like most nonprofits, and I would say like most sports-based youth programs, we had to completely and unexpectedly rethink our program. And we started by returning to our mission. New Heights prioritizes the student athlete over the win. And so at times like this, we went back to the drawing board and we asked ourselves, how will this affect our student athletes? And a student athlete is both a student and an athlete. And right now, they have nearly no opportunity for either of those. So we have, 1.5 billion kids across, the globe out of school. And so the school's been taken away, sports have been taken away. And so I think their identity, in essence, has been hijacked a little bit. One of the things we've been doing is if you stop, we could do this now. If we stop for a second and do a thought experiment, think about how you felt when we couldn't go to the office any longer and you couldn't see your coworkers, or, or jump on the flight to Florida to celebrate my nephew's wedding, which is supposed to happen this weekend. And that's on my calendar and it keeps popping up. And, for that, our kids were supposed to go to Dallas this weekend for the Under Armour circuit, and that's popping up on their calendars right now. Or imagine you guys grabbing a cup of coffee with your friends. And now imagine you're 13 or 16 and you replace that coffee shop with your senior prom, the playoffs, a championship game canceled, not celebrating those critical life events. And so it's not easy for them right now. It's not easy for us right now. And especially for kids who already felt like they were on the outside. And now that they're, kind of at an increased risk because of the population that we serve, because this crisis has exposed vast disparities, among who can access the resources. So that's something that we're addressing head on, the invisible barriers, the unwritten rules when working with vulnerable populations, especially as, KIPP mentioned around mental health, as we say, staying mentally healthy. And so we're adapting, we're shifting in real time to meet our kids and families where they're at. So our primary goal right now is to take steps to make sure that our kids and families feel connected as a team. We've implemented an adaptive remote learning program model, and we're committed to delivering our services on day one, just like CariClub did when we received the email from you guys asking, what do you need? We did the same for our kids and families, and we reached out to them and asked, about food security, about access to technology, about economic security, how jobs lost affect the direct family. Since we're a smaller program and we serve 300 youth, we have, I think, a high impact, deep engagement model. So we're, kind of like a second family, or I would say even, part of the primary family. So we have very close relationships, and that's been able, we've been able to use that relationship to have real frank conversations with, what's going on in each household. And we found to, KIPP pointed out as well, that we had several families, using one phone across the whole family unit to access their online learning. We have, some of our parents and families who are working paycheck to paycheck and, lost their job and were worried about, putting food on the table. So we purchased gift cards. We also purchased laptops. We found that some of our coaches and families, directly lost loved ones. So we went into action there to shift to a trauma-informed model. And so as a direct service provider, within this space, we're meeting our student athletes where they are and making sure that they don't fall through the cracks.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful. And I mean, I can, thinking back when I was a teenager, I can only imagine what these kids are going through, because every little thing, just as you're growing and your development, everything is so much more heightened. It's like, you can't go to the prom. That's like the worst thing in the world, but for us as adults, it's not that big of a deal. But to them, that's their whole life right now. And I think what's really hard for them right now, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, it's because there is no answer. There is no quick solution. And I think that's the really like abyss that these kids are met with. And the challenges that Ashley, you mentioned, and I know one of the big things you guys were doing was March Madness. And Brian, you can speak to this because your Emerging Leaders Council has really, taken the helm and spearheaded what's going to happen now, or how you guys are going to get ahead of that. Can you speak to our leading for the organization?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Brian Hurley. I've been with New Heights since 2016, just about a little over 4 years now. One of our biggest events and the biggest thing that the ELC helps with at New Heights is fundraising. And our big event as the associate board is this March Madness event that happens every year on the first Thursday of the NCAA tournament. And so obviously leading up to that, we're hearing a bunch of news. Schools are closing or just canceling basketball in general. Some leagues are just shutting down their conference tournaments. And as an organization, we had to have probably a couple calls a week to try to figure out our decision on whether we're going to host this big event that has 400 plus people for cocktails and food to watch the games on that first Thursday, which was March 19th. Fortunately, we made the decision 8 days before to cancel it because the next day Cuomo came out and shut down any large gatherings in New York City. And we were able to get our funds back from all the vendors that we had for that event. And then the ELC went out and started contacting all of the donors and ticket purchasers that we had, whether that's friends, whoever in our network was donating, our companies who were sponsoring tables, and went to work on speaking with them about, hey, we have this option. You can turn your ticket or your donation for a table just into a straight donation. We're not going to be able to have the event. You're not going to be able to have your night out. And fortunately, we were able to retain 90% of the donations that we had received. And even though we didn't hit our overall revenue goal for the event itself, because there were no costs, since we didn't have an event space or food or drinks to pay for, we ended up coming pretty close to what we were hoping to net in donations anyways, which we were very fortunate to have. So that was the big thing that the ELC had to help out with right from the get-go. Since then, it's kind of been everybody figuring out on their own for the last couple of weeks what's going on for themselves work-wise, and now kind of getting back into the swing of things in the sense of what more can we provide, whether that's accessories, laptops, tablets, things for students to work with, and also coming up with engagement ideas, trying to keep the young kids involved. As everybody had mentioned, it's a tough time for them in their lives, missing out on some of these big events. I remember the tournament games when I was in high school and college, and now not having that. I couldn't imagine what that would have been like. So I think that's kind of the biggest push that the ELC is going to have to do in these next couple of weeks while we try to get back in the swing of things here in New York City.
Yeah, right. And, it's both of your organizations. It's really incredible what you guys are doing. And, you're really an anchor at the end of the day for these kids. You work with them from such a young age up all the way up until college and afterwards. And to be a presence for them right now, I think is just such a great security blanket in many ways. Do you guys find, some families only have one device that they're sharing. Some kids are stuck at home. Their, internet might not be that accessible. For both your organizations, do you find that you have to really actively reach out to these kids a lot, or because they know that this is an available source to them, have you found that the kids are also reaching back out to you to ask how they can help, and also just to ask questions and to kind of look at you guys for guidance? Or is it kind of a mix?
I can speak to a little bit about the KIPP NYC work that we're doing in this area. So it is a mix for us where we have students and families reaching out through connections to either a teacher that they work well with or a principal. But we also have regular check-ins through our social work team. Kim, did you want to add anything there?
No, I think you pretty much hit a lot of what we are experiencing. It is a very much a back and forth. I know our teachers are checking in with our students on an almost daily basis. So we're trying to catch all the resources and where our students need support. And then our students are also reaching out to their teachers, families are reaching out to social workers and so forth.
That's great.
And then for us, our coaches are kind of our frontline staff. But as a trained social worker myself, and we're led, our executive director is also a social worker, so we bring that energy to the room. And so straight away we went into creating a rubric to prioritize need and created an escalation model, to go to assess the needs and then work it up to make sure that the needs are being addressed. We're also working with our coaches to train them and support each other, because what is so interesting about this is it's a collective grief, it's a collective experience, and so we're having to have conversations with our staff to make sure that they're okay, just like what they say, you put the mask on first and breathe and then you can support. So there's a lot of work going on multiple levels to ensure that we're all taken care of through this time.
Do you guys have any, I'm sure our network will want to be able to share this within their own networks, both professional and personal. Do you have any social media posts that you can share with us? And I'm happy to forward it along to the community as well. Or like you guys were saying, all of this information obviously is also on your websites and on your social medias as well. But if you have anything specific that you would love, any messages that you would love to get across, definitely let us know.
I will say we launched a series called Coping with COVID, Staying Mentally and Physically Ready. And we launched that, within, I think, 10 days, we started talking to the kids and said, let's capture what their experience is. And I'll never forget the first video, Amir Powell, one of the first things he said is, I feel robbed. I feel like my season's been taken away from me and I don't know what's going to happen. And it hit pretty hard that he was able to verbalize and recognize his feelings right away. And so that's something that we're trying to put their voices up front so that the kids can connect, and to also just acknowledge, once we recognize a feeling and name it, we can talk about it, right? So we are trying to get as many videos as we can out about how we're staying mentally and physically ready, and using the meditation apps as you pointed out, and the performance mindset, and shifting into how are we going to stay in the game, and how are we going to be ready to jump back in when it's game time again. So I would point you to that. Also, if you want to just go and like or share, a good job, because our kids are on social. So flooding them with encouragement and messages is, I think, super helpful, and just shows that there's people out there watching and listening and caring.
Yeah, for sure. I think similarly, we're really using KIPP NYC is really using our social media to kind of be those like motivators, those reminders. Right now, we're currently trying to keep everything normal as it can be during these times. So we have our virtual Spirit Week happening. So today's Twin Day. Monday was Move It Monday. Yesterday was, I'm forgetting, sorry. But we're really trying to keep kind of the morale up and sharing all of our students working hard on their virtual learning and doing kind of like day in the lives of a virtual teacher, days in the life of a student, and just sharing those and kind of doing the same thing as New Heights, just giving the encouragement. Our families are on social media, they're checking, they're resharing, and I think it's definitely helpful to have that reshare. We're also doing a lot of things that are kind of open to our whole communities, not just our KIPP families. Most of our schools do like daily read alouds for students of all ages. And that's really things that can be shared not just for KIPP students, but all students. And it's just a quick little break from a day that might be helpful. We also have our Bronx Community Pantry that's open to students, all public school students. And that's also just something that we would love the information to be spread, so we can reach as many of our families and communities as possible.
Thank you for sharing that. And one last question is, I just found out about this myself, as I think Cuomo is extending the shelter in place until May. For you guys, obviously closed, the schools are still closed no matter what, but has that have you guys had to, I mean, again, I am aware that the news is very new, but for you guys, have you had to really pivot really quickly, or do you have anything set in place already, or any roadmaps that you're thinking of for the kids?
I think we're continuing with that adaptive program model, and we were mentally preparing our, part of our contingencies were for the school to be closed until, the end of this school year, or, starting back in September. So I know we've probably all, we've done those exercises, those contingency plans, and are just now putting them into action.
Yes, likewise on the KIPP NYC side as well. We have thought about this scenario for a while, and the real focus, I think, in thinking about a longer term model of remote learning is around the learning part. It's really ensuring that kids aren't falling behind during this time, and that we can continue to work with families so that the technology needs, the language translation needs are addressed as well. But it's something that we're thinking about at the top of mind. So it's a transition, but I think the systems that we've built and put in place are going to be what help us successful through this model.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. And, the whole point of doing these webinars is how can we spotlight you and how can we help as a community? Because at the end of the day, in a pandemic, we're stronger when we're together, and we want to help in any way. And members, obviously this is recorded, and we'll be sending this out to our community. And of course, Ashley, Kim, Nika, Brian, your contact info will also include. So if anyone has any questions, they can reach out directly. And as things change, don't hesitate to let us know how we can help when you pivot. And thank you for being a security blanket and an anchor for these kids. And that's really incredible work that you guys are doing, and so appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everyone.